Connecting Central Texas. This is 25 News.
Title 42 ending in about 5 hours. We have extensive team coverage from El Paso to McAllen to Brownsville.
Closer to home tonight, we're live at the Waco Tornado Memorial, marking 70 years since that disaster devastated the area. But our top story tonight is in Milam County, where a police officer was killed in a shootout. Paige
Ellenberger is live in Cameron. Paige, this loss has rattled that small town.
Yeah, Lauren, absolutely. And I did just talk with the Milam County Sheriff, Mike Clore, who did confirm that the officer killed in last night's shootout is confirmed to be Sergeant Josh Klaus. Now, that's really all of the information that we have, other than the scene does look very different today than when it did last night, as a search warrant turned to a deadly shootout.
The small town of Cameron is shaken to its core.
I didn't hear gunshots here, but we heard it across town.
Gunshots ringing out on the 500th block of East 7th Street after police say they were searching for a suspect late Wednesday night.
Shootings, that's out of the ordinary here.
Police say a man responsible for shooting his wife in the neck began shooting at them when they responded. One bullet hit a Cameron PD officer, killing him. One of the officer's bullets killing the suspect as well.
You never know what's around the corner nowadays.
Now, police tell me that the suspect's wife did drive about 7 blocks to a local grocery store where she ended up calling for help. Now, the Texas Rangers are handling this investigation, and they were holding a press conference tomorrow. However, DPS tells me that that's no longer the case, rather that they'll send out information in the morning. Live in Cameron tonight, Paige Ellenberger, 25 News.
All right, Paige. Now, this is the second officer-involved shooting impacting Milam County in about 6 months. Back in October, Chief Deputy Sam Ferguson was responding to a mental health call in Rockdale when he was shot in the face. Here's video when I sat down with him a little while ago. The suspect was killed by Ferguson. He's undergone months of treatment and surgeries and is still helping out, though, around the sheriff's office.
Today, Killeen police are honoring a fallen officer on the 9th anniversary of his death. Charles Chuck Dinwiddie died in the line of duty on May 11, 2014. He was shot while conducting a no-knock warrant on Circle M Drive in Killeen. He died 2 days later from his injuries. He was just 47 years old. Dinwiddie was a detective and on the SWAT team for 18 years and leaves behind a wife and 2 children. Marvin Guy was charged with capital murder and 3 counts of attempted capital murder. Last September, the Bell County DA announced he would not seek the death penalty in that case. Guy is still in the Bell County Jail awaiting trial. All right, let's get a first check of our weather this evening.
Caleb's in for Matt tonight. Caleb, a warm day out there.
Well, it's been quiet, but you're right. It's warm and humid. The rain has been off to our northwest, and for today, that's where it's going to stay. We're looking at 89 degrees in 3 separate spots: Goldthwaite, San Saba, Lampasas. Those, of course, all out to the west. You venture towards I-35, and it's still warm. It's 85 in Temple, 83 for Waco. And right now, it's actually warmer in Fairfield, where it's 86, and even Centerville at 87 degrees right now. Of course, it doesn't feel that way. It feels like the 90s for most places. It's a heat index of 95 in Gatesville right now. Also feels like 95 in Hillsborough and Corsicana. That is because these dew points are way up there. It is just so muggy outside, and so that combination is really lending itself to feeling hotter than it actually is. For actual temperatures, we're going to be in the 80s for a little while longer, but shortly after 8 o'clock, we should be slipping into the 70s, so 78 degrees at 9 and 76 degrees at 10 o'clock. Still with just a few clouds around and a little bit breezy. South-southeast winds at about 12 to 13 miles per hour. And as we go into the next few days, we'll see those rain chances go up and our thunderstorm chances going up as well. Now, most of tomorrow should be dry, but those storm chances are for late in the evening, and that will leave us with what looks to be a wet Saturday and possibly Sunday as well. We'll talk about how much rain we're expecting to receive in my forecast ahead.
Temple is dealing with more sewage in the creek today. The city says rain and a power outage caused hundreds of thousands of gallons of sewage to overflow in Williamson Creek near James Wilson Park. This is a different incident than yesterday's overflow into Bird Creek. The city says rain caused hundreds of thousands of gallons of sewage to discharge into the creek near 61st Street and Northwood Road. TCEQ has been notified about both overflows. Harker Heights voters have once again voted to legalize small amounts of marijuana. Last year in November, voters approved the ordinance to decriminalize small amounts of pot. Then the city council voted to repeal that ordinance. But a petition was submitted to place it back on the ballot. So this weekend, the citizens voted to legalize it again.
The voters voted on Saturday. No, they don't want to repeal that. They liked their vote from last November. So I think this is a strong message to city council. Like, don't bother with people's votes. Leave it be.
5 other Texas cities have passed similar measures. The 3rd Cavalry Regiment on Fort Cavazos has spent the week celebrating 177 years of protecting the nation. 25 News reporter Adam Schindler traveled to Post to see some of the action firsthand.
Brave Rifles Week. That's what they are calling the week-long celebration that is taking place in the 3rd Cavalry Regiment on Fort Cavazos.
So Brave Rifles Week is in celebration of 177 years of continuous service. And there's not a lot of units in the Army that can say that they've done that. So every major battle that the United States has fought in, the Brave Rifles have been a part of that.
The intense competition caters to skills and talents of all types, so nobody is left out.
Everything from powerlifting to a best trooper competition, to spades, poker, to an art competition, all of these different types of events that give each trooper in the organization an opportunity to showcase their talents.
A much needed break for the heroes in 3CR.
We're usually go, go, go all the time, especially with NTC this August, so it's been really nice to take a step back and breathe and just get to know the troopers and have fun.
Especially far from home, and that's why one of them has a message for the woman who raised her.
Hi Mom, I wanted to thank you for your inspiration and leadership that you showed me, and happy Mother's Day. I love you.
On Fort Cavazos, Adam Schindler, 25 News.
Well, one of the most controversial border policies, the COVID-era policy Title 42, set to expire at midnight tonight.
As it comes to an end, migrants arriving at the southern U.S. border, especially here in Texas, will find new rules making it more difficult now to apply for asylum. Morgan Norwood has more.
Title 42, the COVID-era health policy that allowed U.S. officials to quickly expel most migrants at the border without allowing asylum claims, will end just before midnight tonight. President Biden says it's going to be chaotic at the border for a while.
The purpose of what we're doing now is making legal immigration more streamlined and moving in a direction that people know that there's a legal way to get here and not a legal way.
For months, officials were worried there would be a spike in migrants at the border as Title 42 expired, but now they say that surge is already here. Border Patrol Chief Raul Ortiz saying the increase that we have seen in the last 5 to 7 days was really the surge after May 11th. I don't expect us to have the 17 to 18,000 crossings per day some people predicted. As that controversial border policy ends, new rules for asylum seekers. Some migrants will be required to have applied for and been denied asylum in another country before being allowed to apply here in the U.S. Anyone removed can face at least a 5-year ban from the country. DHS says 1.4 million people have already been sent back in the past year.
I want to be very clear. Our borders are not open. People who cross our border unlawfully and without a legal basis to remain will be promptly processed and removed.
Aid workers say while some migrants are aware of the changing policies, many are not.
They're risking everything to come to the United States because they cannot be in their home country.
And U.S. Border Patrol says they have close to 27,000 people in custody as of Wednesday, with more than half of their 9 facilities along the southwest border over capacity, which is why they are focusing in on transportation, taking migrants to less strained sectors and facilities. I'm Morgan Norwood, ABC News, El Paso, Texas.
And some of the best perspective on what these migrants can expect as they try to come in, it comes from immigration attorneys. I caught up with Rocio Martinez earlier today. She's one of the top immigration lawyers in the entire state. She says they're expecting a very busy May and perhaps early summer. And even though the Title 42 is officially ending today, she says this new policy adapted by the Biden administration, which requires all those migrants to submit documents and info prior to coming in online or using an app, will actually be tougher. She says most of them aren't even aware it's being put into place.
Requesting people to make appointments and kind of submit documents and submit their passports and things like that before they even showed up at the border. Now that's becoming basically the de rigueur norm, right? Like you have to do it that way. And if you don't, then you're not going to be able to seek asylum at all. That was not the condition under Title 42, but it is starting today, now the new policy.
Right now, her docket load is up to 200 immigration cases, close to the most it's ever been. She says ultimately it's on Congress to find a longer-term solution for the border.
Happening this weekend, the city of Temple is hosting the 75th annual Drone Miller Air Show. It's happening Saturday from 9 to 5 at the Drone Miller Regional Airport on Airport Road. Now, there's going to be a lot more than a dozen exciting performances. Pilots will be doing aerobatics, formation flying, and military aircraft demonstrations. The gates open at 8 a.m. Tickets are $15 online and $20 at the gate. For more information, just go to templetexas.gov/airshow.
It was a busy morning for some young readers at West Avenue Elementary in Waco. I got to spend some time reading and learning from some awesome third graders. It's all part of the ongoing If You Give a Child a Book campaign that 25 News and Scripps push all year long to get youngsters interested in reading. The big book out right now, Dog Man, 20,000 Fleas Under the Sea. Author Dave Pilkey handing out thousands for free to kids across the country. A big thank you to him and to West Avenue Elementary.
And you said they were avid readers, huh?
They were. They're dedicated little guys.
That is awesome. Well, more than 100 people died from a powerful F5 tornado 70 years ago.
Up next tonight at 6, we'll find out how Central Texas is remembering.
So it will be warm once again tomorrow with highs right around 87, muggy as well, but it's late into Friday that thunderstorms may show up first, and then we get that going into Saturday. More on the wet weekend ahead.
70 years ago today, a powerful F5 tornado hit Waco.
You can see the damage and destruction left behind from this decades-old footage. It is still one of the deadliest tornadoes in U.S. history and the deadliest in Texas since the year 1900. Today, the city holding a remembrance for the victims of that storm. 25
News reporter Andrew Lamparski is live at the memorial downtown. Andrew, what's the latest?
Yeah, Todd, Lauren, I'm here at the corner of 4th Street and Austin Avenue next to this black teardrop monument. And on this are 114 names, each person who died in that tornado 70 years ago. 600 others were injured, 600 homes destroyed. But some buildings, like the Alico building just across from us, were left standing on that day. Today, we had a chance to catch up with some survivors of that tornado. Even after 70 years, forgetting isn't an option.
It was grand chaos in Waco, Texas.
Mama wouldn't let us come downtown for about a week because she didn't want us to see the downtown.
Flash forward to present day, the city is still reflecting on the destruction left behind.
Waco's story is one of resilience, renewal, and a community that can come back stronger than ever, no matter what happens.
At Thursday's memorial, born and raised Wacoans who saw it all.
He didn't come home from work, so we were worried.
Janie Ailman lost her brother, Felix, in the destruction.
It's something bad that happened so long ago to so many people.
With her own eyes, she saw her city leveled. Bill Johnson says he was just 12 when the tornado destroyed his family roofing company.
It was the most scary experience in my life.
He remembers crews searching for people trapped in rubble, followed by years of the city coming together and rebuilding.
I've seen unbelievable heroes, hometown heroes in Waco, Texas.
Today, a black teardrop sits in the center of downtown to make sure May 11th is never forgotten. Still so many emotions even after all these years. The F5 tornado left miles of damage across McLennan County. Looking back, Caleb, I think you can help us get a better idea of what this path of the tornado looked like.
Yeah, that's right, Andrew. And of course, being 70 years ago, a full reconstruction of the path isn't readily available, but we do have clues as to where it went. There are certainly many accounts that it would have passed right through here. If you can picture a large tornado passing between our shot on the studio and the Veterans Hospital, it would have come right up present day where the stadium is and the ball fields and up into the neighborhoods here of Beverly Hills, making its way towards downtown, which of course is where that memorial is. So today, well, it's quiet over top of Waco. We've got the cloud cover here and just some sun, but if we were to overlay the path of that from 1953, here's what it would have looked like. Again, starting near Lorena up into Hewitt, and then this is right where I would have crossed, showing you there from our Clark roofing cam, moving almost due north as it came into downtown. And of course, unfortunately, it left a path that was 23 miles long of destruction, rated F5 at its maximum, and 114 deaths, which, by the way, is tied for the deadliest tornado in history. 1902, there was a tornado in Goliad that also killed 114 people, but this injured far more at 597 injuries, partially because that tornado was obscured by rain, very difficult to see, and a lot of people just didn't know that it was coming. But today, it's quieter in Waco at 83 and 88 degrees in Lampasas, 89.
Title 42 is set to expire in less than 6 hours. It is that pandemic-era rule that allowed the U.S. to turn away migrants at the border. Now, both the state and Biden administration already seeing a surge of migrants at the border. Scripps News' John Moan is in Brownsville. And John, you're following one group pretty closely tonight.
Yeah, look, Haitians and Venezuelans are lined along the riverbanks over in Matamoros, and there maybe some of them are making a last-ditch effort to cross the river before Title 42 ends. That's because a new, more stringent set of rules based on existing United States law are set to take effect. The United States government encouraging and demanding people seek legal pathways to asylum. So getting into the United States is about to get a lot more difficult for them.
The refugee camp sits on a sharp bend of the Rio Grande. It's just a swim away from the U.S. border near Brownsville, Texas, if you dare.
Pero ya no teníamos más nada porque no teníamos otro recurso. Pero era el único medio de nosotros poder pasar y cumplir un sueño, una meta final.
Luz Marita Yairia counts herself amongst the thousands of Venezuelans at this makeshift community in Matamoros. It's one of the most dangerous cities in northern Mexico, where migrants often fall prey to kidnappers, gangsters, and rapists. She's just one of many desperate men, women, and children stretching along the U.S. border, trying to navigate recent and confusing changes in U.S. immigration policies. The Trump administration invoked Title 42 in 2020, using an existing public health policy to prevent COVID from spreading as a substitute for immigration law. It resulted in the expulsion of millions of asylum seekers back to Mexico. The policy expires just before midnight tonight, with President Joe Biden announcing more legal pathways to reach the U.S. But White House officials are still discouraging migrants from trying to cross over.
Let me be clear. The lifting of the Title 42 public health order does not mean our border is open. In fact, it is the contrary.
The new policies are confusing to many migrants, many of whom are desperately trying to score an appointment at a border checkpoint on a glitchy app with only 1,000 available spots a day. Some have tried for appointments for months with no luck. People can also try for asylum through humanitarian parole, although it's limited to Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans. The last option is to cross illegally and begin a formal deportation process. Families and children will most likely be put on a slower track, meaning they can live and work legally in the U.S. until a court hearing. But most single adults will be likely removed quickly. Migrants also face what's called a transit ban. That means they must first seek asylum in countries they've passed through, which can be an extremely lengthy and potentially dangerous process. But if they don't and cross illegally, U.S. immigration officials can block entry and deport them.
Let's set up regional processing centers. Let's work to make sure that people have options so that if they're looking to seek asylum or if they're looking to come fill a job, how can we make sure that we match those things up?
But officials like Mayor Victor Trevino of Laredo, Texas, fear chaos and strain on his city's resources once Title 42 is lifted.
We're in the trenches of the immigration problem, so we're boarding up like if it's a hurricane coming.
Under Title 42, migrants could cross the river and be expelled over and over again because it's a public health law. It didn't carry the consequences of federal immigration law. It was defined under the Trump administration at the height of the pandemic as an end run around an asylum seeker's due process to seek asylum in the United States. But starting tomorrow, anyone who crosses the border without pursuing these new pathways could face deportation within days and will be banned from re-entry into the United States for 5 years. Todd?
Well, as you just heard, border cities are preparing for an influx of migrants.
They sure are. Clara Benitez with our sister station, Chris 6, is live tonight in McAllen. Clara, what are you seeing on the ground there?
So it's been pretty quiet here in McAllen, but that might not be the case starting tomorrow. We spoke to Mayor of McAllen, Javier Villalobos, who says that today they were going to drop off 2,000 migrants in McAllen. That was before Title 42 has expired, and they're currently preparing right now for that influx.
Less than 24 hours until Title 42 expires. Border cities like McAllen are already feeling the immigration surge.
We have already started to see for all this past week, numbers increasing, people crossing already, and Border Patrol releasing higher numbers to us, and we're being able to manage and help because we already done this for the past 10 years.
Sister Norma Pimentel with Catholic Charities says over the last 10 years, they have never had to deal with the pandemic-era policy ending, making this a first.
How many people are coming? We have no clue, but we're expecting a lot.
McAllen Mayor Javier Villalobos says the city has been in a state of emergency for the past 2 years and is still currently in one. Recently opening up the Azalduas overflow shelter, currently closed off to the public.
My understanding is that by today we will have approximately 2,000 in Azalduas already, and that's even before Title 42 has even been lifted.
Mayor Villalobos says the immigrants coming through McAllen do not want to stay on the border, but transporting will be tricky.
And not just capacity, you have logistics, and now you have to transport them out. So we need buses, airplanes, all that type of stuff.
For now, Sister Pimentel says she is reaching out to other parishes in the area to help house those migrants coming to the U.S.
Now, after Title 42 expires, migrants who enter the country illegally will now have to enter and be processed through Title 8. So anytime you enter illegally, you are going to be added penalties into your deportation proceedings. So CBP officials want asylum seekers to use the CBP One app and go through a port of entry. Reporting in McAllen, Clara Benitez.
All right. As Title 42 ends tonight, the U.S. House is passing the Secure the Border Act. That bill passed along party lines earlier. Just some of the provisions include requiring construction of the border wall to continue, prohibiting non-U.S. nationals from arriving between ports of entry, and ending the so-called catch and release, and a limit on who can file for asylum. Pete Sessions, John Carter, and some other Texans were co-sponsors of the bill. It now goes to the Senate.
Now, this was the scene in Honduras today. Hundreds of people gathered in the city near the border with Nicaragua to start the trek to the U.S. and start a new migrant caravan. Governor Greg Abbott is busing more migrants to Washington, D.C. today. 2 more buses stopped in front of the vice president's residence at the U.S. Naval Observatory. That is on top of roughly 50 migrants that were dropped off last night there. He says he sent more than 17,000 migrants to sanctuary cities.
Texas, of course, is only half of the U.S. border with Mexico. New Mexico, Arizona, and California are also seeing an influx. Nick Cialetti is in Yuma, Arizona with the latest.
I'm Nick Cialetti here at the border in Yuma, Arizona, where we have seen a steady flow of migrants throughout the day. I've been here since 2 o'clock this morning. This looks like the last group of migrants that's going to pass through. Hundreds and hundreds of them. Border Patrol still trying to assess the exact numbers. What happens here is they're going to be processed initially. From here, they get taken to a substation where they're going to undergo medical checks, and also they're going to do background checks as well before they can begin that asylum seeking process. And of course, it's a long process as they head into the immigration courts. This is all happening before Title 42 even ends. So officials here tell me they're worried about what happens after midnight when Title 42 goes away. Reporting here from the southern border in Yuma, Arizona, Nick Cialetti, Scripps News.
All right, Nick. Well, we've got about 5 more hours until Title 42 expires.
Yeah, but what happens to the migrants when they get here? Next, we take a look at navigating immigration law.
It does look like we're in for some rain over the weekend. Between Friday night and Sunday at about 10 p.m., we could be looking at 1 to 2 inches of rain for many of us, but we'll talk about the timing of that and maybe some thunderstorms as well coming up next.